I'm going to preview the Baylor at Cincinnati football game, which will be played on October 21st at 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN+. And currently, Cincinnati is favored by 3 points, which has increased since last time I checked. So, Cincinnati did start 2-0 with a win over Eastern Kentucky and Pitt on the road, but then they have fallen off a cliff. They lost to Miami, Ohio at home. They lost against Oklahoma at home. I mean, Miami, Ohio was an overtime, 31-24. Oklahoma, they only lost 20-6. BYU on the road, 35-27. But the game was not as close as the final score indicated. They scored like a late touchdown to make it a little bit interesting down the stretch. And then they lost to Iowa State by 20 points, 30-10 last week. In the last 4 games alone, Cincinnati has turned the ball over 8 times offensively. So that has been a problem for them recently. Now, I'm going to dive into the stats on, like, as a team on offense and team on defense. Of course, some players to keep an eye on. But I'm not going to go into particular numbers for each player, which I will. If you want to check those out, you can check out in the description below where I have some of those stats on some of those players you need to keep an eye on. I mean, just to make it faster, offensively they allowed 33 tackles for loss and 12 sacks. So about two per game here. 8 interceptions and 2 fumbles lost. They averaged 26.7 points per game. Rushing-wise, they averaged 202.7 rushing yards per game and 241 passing yards per game, which I think the passing yard, they could pass the ball some, but they've just not been taking care of the ball, as you could tell by those numbers. And time possession, 32 minutes, 45 seconds. Third down, it's like 39 for 93. 8 for 17 on 4th down, 142 first downs, which of course includes penalties and runs and passes, but you get the point. They run like a multiple offense. 16 pass breakups allowed and 17 quarterback hurries. They allowed a block kick this year. The offensive line 2 deep is 313.5 pounds. So what are some players to keep an eye on? Obviously, the starting quarterback, Emory Jones. Yeah, he's been bounced around a lot in the college football game. I mean, throughout his career, when you look where he started and up to now. And I will say this about the guy. He is a second leading rusher on the team. Right behind their best running back, Corey Kiner. I mean, Emory Jones is number 5, 6'3", 212-pound quarterback. That's a senior. So, just to let you know. And Corey Kiner, number 21, it's 5'9", 215-pound running back. That's a junior. So those 2 guys are your top 2 leading rushers by far on this, because it's like a big drop-off to Miles Montgomery. When you check out the numbers, it's a big drop-off. Number 26, 5'11", 205-pound running back. That's a sophomore. Sure, they got Ryan Montgomery, but he's questionable for the game. Number 22, 5'10", 205-pound running back. That's a senior. Yeah, that's pretty much all the running backs you need to know. But the wide receiver-wise, Xavier Henderson, number 8, 6'3", 200-pound wide receiver. That's a senior. That's the best target right there for the team when you look at the numbers here. And I want to mention this, too, on the running backs. It's more like Corey Kiner's more of the receiving threat with 10 receptions. Everybody else has 5 or less. So I'm just saying that. Braden Smith, number 0, 5'10", 185-pound wide receiver. That's a senior. So that's the top 2 targets right there. And D. Wiggins, number 2, 6'3", 195-pound wide receiver. That's a senior. Yeah, that's all 3 guys are above 300 yards receiving or more. In fact, the top 3 are above 300. And in fact, the first one was over 400 yards receiving this year. I mean, but the best tight ends, Chamon Meta, I mean, Number 7, 6'5", 248-pound tight end. That's a sophomore. Then it's like Evan Prater, number 3, 6'4", 208-pound wide receiver. That's a junior. But then it's like a big drop off though. I'm going to go ahead and mention like Peyton Singletary, number 88, 6'4", 235-pound tight end. That's a junior. So that's pretty much all the guys you need to know on that, I would say. Now, defensively, they allow 25 points per game, 104 first downs. They only allow 104.2 rushing yards per game. And we already know the Baylor offense has been struggling to run the ball a lot of times. So this is not going to be the ideal opponent for this. But they allow 230.2 passing yards per game, 23 pass breakups and 18 quarterback hurries, 37 tackles for loss, 14 sacks. So they are a good defensive line, as you could tell. If they could stop the run, that's pretty good. And then they got all those tackles for loss and sacks. They have 7 turnovers overall, like 3 interceptions and 4 fumble recoveries. 27 for 77 on 3rd down. Defensively, 7 for 9 on 4th down. 27 minutes, 15 seconds of time of possession allowed. They run like a multiple defense. And their average D-line weight is like 281, pounds, which y'all could check out the official number. I'm just trying to make it short and sweet. It's like 283.1, to be honest. But the nose tackle position, the 3 deep, is 307 2/3 pounds. And the left defensive end / right defensive end, 270.8333333 pounds. So what are some players to keep an eye on? Like Deshaun Pace, number 3, a 5'11", 212-pound star position. That's a senior. Dorian James, number 6, 6 foot, 230-pound linebacker. That's a junior. Jack Dingle, number 49, 6'4", 238-pound sophomore. That's a linebacker. That's a sophomore. Byron Threats, number 10, 5'10", 195-pound safety. That's a junior. Taj Ward, number 15, 6 foot, 195-pound safety. That's a senior. Daniel Greziak. Okay, I'm going to just spell it out. I apologize for butchering that name because it's a hard name, as you can tell. Greziak. So, Justin Harris, number 12, 6 foot, 195-pound cornerback, as in like a CB. That's a senior. Jonte Corleone. Yeah, he was on the preseason Big 12 awards. That's obvious. It's number 2, 6'2", 318-pound defensive lineman. That's a sophomore. Jordan Young, number 1, 6 foot, 195-pound cornerback. That's a sophomore. Ken Willis, number 27, 5'11", 180-pound star. That's a junior. Jawan Briggs, number 0, 6 foot 2", 297-pound defensive end. That's a senior. His number is number 0, by the way, if I didn't mention that already. Malik Van, number 4, 6'4", 3", 268-pound defensive end. That's a senior. So you could tell they have some good guys up front. And I'm just going to stop it up right there. But I'm going to just go ahead and mention like a few more defensive line players, like Justin Wadley, Wotly, number 95, 6 foot 3", 270-pound, 5-pound defensive end. As a junior. Rob Jackson, number 99, 6 foot 5", 275-pound defensive end. That's a sophomore. That's just to name a few more guys on there at defensive end and even defensive tackle, like Ryan Maloney, number 57, 6 foot 2", 250-pound defensive lineman. That's a senior. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Now, special teams wise, that kicker for them has had a block kick this year. So I'm just going to point that out. Carter Brown, number 33, 6 foot, 205-pound kicker. That's a sophomore. So y'all can check out stats in the description below so y'all can see it. And Mason Fletcher is a punter, obviously, which I'm going to just go over that number right there, what he's done. Number 31, 6'7", 215-pound punter. That's a junior. 20 punts for 883 yards, as long as like 57 yards. Average 43.27 yards. 12 of those went inside the 20-yard line, and 4 of those over 50 yards. I'm going to just tell you right now, you got to try it. You need to come out with energy and start faster than you have been, if possible. I mean, you got to start faster than you have been, because the Cincinnati crowd is going to be fired up because they know their defense is good enough on the defensive line to give themselves a chance in this game. I'm just going to point that out up front. Of course, you want to limit your penalties overall, which that's not been a problem for the team, ironically. Yeah, compared to week 1. But you get the point. You need to find a way to not have a lot of penalties in this game, especially when it's like in the red zone or offensively or defensively. And of course, special teams, you don't want to run into the kicker or rough the kicker even, of course. And of course, you don't want to kick the ball out of bounds. So, yeah, on kickoffs, I mean, of course, special teams, you got to have good punts. You got to execute your blocking on like extra points, field goals, punting. Of course, you got to not drop your, you got to be smart in special team situations, like call a fair catch and make sure you catch the ball too. I mean, you don't want to muff the punt. Yeah, you don't want a turnover on the special teams because sometimes they do lead into points. They do. So I'm just going to point that out. Now, offensively, I'm going to say this. Baylor is going to have to find a way to throw the ball. In order to run it, they have to throw it. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but that's what Dave Aranda said in his press conference. Because, look, at this point, we're not as good to run the ball like 2 straight times to hit the wall and get nothing and get yourself in an obvious third and long situation. You might need to try to do some screenplays to the outside and try to get some yards, or like quick slants or a quick in route, something to get some yards offensive, like to make your those short passes more like your run game. That way it'll be a little bit easier to open up the run some more. And I know this offensive line has been criticized in the past, and they deserve the criticism because they have been inconsistent. And I know they are younger, but they have not performed as well up to this point. We need the offensive line to step up. I'm not just talking about the run game either. I'm talking about the pass game. And you might need to run some halfback screens just to get away from the defensive line. I mean, avoid that rush and make that more like your passing, like your running game. Possibly. You might need to, or a tight end screen. Of course, you got to execute blocking. I mean, that's the truth. Because, look, if you could give your Blake Shapen some time, their secondary is one of the worst secondaries in terms of passing efficiency for the opponent. In terms of like a really good percentage to completing a pass. I mean, and the yards given up per play. I mean, I'm just telling the truth, and you got to have some explosives in there. I mean, you got to, obviously in your run blocking, you got to have not only your offensive line step up, but your tight ends, your wide receivers. I'm just pointing out the truth on this because everybody's accountable for the blocking on the run game, in my opinion. I don't care, and you don't need to have holdings. You got to be better in the red zone. You got to take care of the ball. I mean, because look, in order to give yourself a chance to win this game, you got to win the turnover battle. I mean, I'm just telling the truth on this, and when we get to the red zone, score touchdowns and not field goals, if possible. I mean, I'm just telling you the truth, and we got to be better in the red zone as a team here. Because we have struggled in the red zone, and hopefully they will improve on that. I'm just telling the truth. And of course, if you could get some big explosive plays, that'll open up the defense some more. And maybe it opens up the running lanes a little bit. But still, we need to find... We don't want to run... Like, they're not going to try to run the ball 2 times in a row anymore. Then pass it. To be so predictable offensively. And they're going to try to do something different. And they need to use that tempo unlike last game. I don't know why. We didn't use the tempo. I mean, just to help. That's what worked against UCF. So I'm just telling the truth on that. And defensively, it's rather simple. Don't let Cincinnati run the ball. If possible. I mean, if you could shut down the running backs for Cincinnati in this game, and the most effective guy is Emory Jones, as long as you don't give up big plays to him on the ground, that's fine. I mean, and we don't, in obvious passing situations, you need to find a way to not allow like a broken play to happen for him to escape the pocket and then run for the first down. I forgot to mention this on offense. You got to win first and second down to give yourself a third and manageable, like a third and medium, if not a third and short. Or get the first down on second down. Something. I mean, obviously on defense, you need to find a way to force turnovers. Emory Jones has given up the football a lot in the last 4 games, as you could tell. I mean, yeah, he's not that great of a passer. When you look at the numbers, the first game was over 300 yards. That's the only game he's done it. And that was against an FCS opponent. You need to find a way to force turnovers in this game, because if you could get a turnover on their own side of the field, we got to convert that. Of course, the offense needs to convert that into touchdowns to make a difference in this game. I'm just telling the truth. And look, I get Cincinnati's game plan is going to run the ball, not just with the running backs, but with Emory Jones as well. I mean, that's their second best rusher. And he's a mobile quarterback. He's similar to Nate Johnson from Utah, but more experienced. I'm just going to point that out right there. And I don't want to even think about the Long Island quarterbacks that they used in the game. They're not as good as Emory Jones. But you need to keep Emory Jones in the pocket and try to make him beat you through the air. I mean, don't let him scramble a lot. You cannot lose to contain. You got to play with an edge, not just on offense, but on defense. And you got to contain the edges a lot better than you have been against Cincinnati on the run game, or even losing contain on the quarterback, because I know that has been a problem in the past. You got to find a way to do something to not allow Emory Jones go crazy on you and scrambling. And when the play is broken down, he will take off. So we got to be aware of that. So you want to take away, you don't want to allow deep plays to happen, not just on the ground, but in the passing game too. And like I said, force turnovers, because Emory Jones has done that a lot. And he's not that efficient of a passer at times. So I'm just saying that, but you got to get pressure in his face and don't let him sit in the pocket all day. But at the same time, like, you don't want, if there's nothing open, he'll just take off and run at times. Of course, I forgot to mention this on special teams. Go back to that for a second. If you could block a punt without committing a penalty, do it. Same thing goes for a kick. I mean, that's another thing. Of course, on defense, you need to find a way to not allow touchdowns as much as possible. Of course, you got to win on first and second down and put them in third and long. I mean, if they could get behind the chains, they're going to have to throw the ball, or if they're going to try to run it on third and long, shut down the run. But if you allow a lot of rushing yards, not just to Emory Jones, but their running backs, you're in kind of in big trouble, as we all know. And hopefully, Trey Emery plays a lot more than last game. And apparently, I thought he didn't play last game against Texas Tech. He played very minimal. It's not like the guy that had playing in nose tackle, I should know his name for Baylor on this. He's not bad. He plays with great technique, but he is 270 pounds. He's not that big at the nose tackle position. And we need Jarrell Boykins to play in this game, hopefully, too. He's 330 pounds, and Trey Emery's like 315. Having both of those guys would help, but I would also say you got to have your linebackers be a lot better in run support. And you got to have good angles. You got to tackle a lot better. I mean, I'm just telling the truth. Let me just go check on the name for that Baylor guy. But you know what I'm saying. Having a smaller defense nose tackle does hurt. And that's probably the reason why of the rushing stuff. Besides, you got to have your cornerback step up. Not just in the run game, but in a passing game. Of course, you don't want to be looking so much and get beat on play action, too. I mean, I'm just telling the truth. And don't allow anything wide open to Cincinnati in the passing game. Let them try to throw it into coverage, and then you pick it off. Or they have to make a contested catch. You got to come out with urgency here, and this is a big game for both these teams. The loser of this game will be 2-5 and probably unlikely to make a bowl, unless craziness happens. I'm just telling the truth. Ooh, Cooper Lance is the guy's name. Yeah, that's kind of what I kind of had a hunch on who the guy was, but he's not that big. Like, he's between 270 to 280 at nose tackle. Of course, you gotta have good pass rush integrity against Emory Jones. You don't want him to scramble as much as possible. And if you could try to send a message to him early without committing a penalty, just get a good clean hit, make him uncomfortable. I mean, and I'm just telling the truth. And I don't want to say go hurt the guy either. I know. Oh, no. I don't want to do that on purpose. But you get the point. Go out and send a message to him early without committing a penalty, of course. And we don't want personal foul targetings. I mean, that's the truth. Then you're without that player for the rest of the game. And possibly if it happens in the second half, the first half of the next game. But you get the point on all this. So, yeah, and this is a winnable game for Baylor. And I know it's the same thing for Cincinnati because, look, Baylor's been reeling. They got destroyed at home by Tech. And that's not a great Texas Tech team. And they have failed to live up to the hype compared to what they should be doing by now. But still, you get the point. You have to find a way, scrap this out, Baylor, here. I'm just telling you, because I know you don't want to lose another Big 12 game, and especially you don't want to lose to a team that's a newcomer. I mean, it's the truth in all this, and you got to come out with energy and exceed their energy, and you got to play with a lot of urgency in this game. Because like I said, you don't want to be 2-5. You don't want to be. And if you could shut down the run for Cincinnati's offense and take away the pass as much as possible, and your pass defense has been a lot better than we have thought up to this point, especially with all those young guys at corner. And you got to not only have your linebackers step up, but you got to have them in the run game, but in a pass game too. But, I mean, your passing defense has been great. I mean, 205 passing yards per game allowed. That's pretty solid. So, if you could fix that run defense and keep the pass defense where it is, if not better, like force turnovers like crazy, and score off of those. Obviously, you don't want to allow any points out turnovers. That Baylor offense does turn the ball over, or even special teams. You want to limit that as much as possible, like to 0. And in that situation, of course, on offense, if you got the turnover from the defense, you need to score points out turnovers to make a difference in this game, because sometimes it is a difference in the game on points out turnovers. You got to win the time possession if possible, and trying to wear out that defense, which I know the run game has been a problem, and I know that for a fact when you look at the offensive line, what they have done. And I don't get why we didn't take another transfer at this point, but it is what it is. We got to deal with it and try to find a way to get through this game right here, because this is against a good defensive line for Cincinnati. If you could step up like you kind of did in that Utah game for the majority of that game, because they have a solid defensive line similar to Cincinnati. If you could kind of do that on running the ball like you did in that game, that would really help. But I'm just telling you the truth here. We got to come out, ready to go, fired up. And I don't care who steps up in terms of leadership. We need somebody to say, take over in leadership, not just on offense, but on defense and overall as a team here. And you got to send a message to Cincinnati early if possible, and take the crowd out of the game if you can. I'm just telling the truth, and I get this is another road game here, and you only played one road game. The last time you came back and won dramatically, but you don't want to be down 35-7 in this game. Oh no, or down 3 possessions, or even 2 possessions, if possible. I mean, 3 possessions, like 17 points or more. Obviously, you don't want to be in that situation again. Oh no. 2 scores, that's tough against this defense. So I'm just saying, come out fired up, ready to go from the jump, and let's take it to Cincinnati. You got to go out there and leave no doubt. And I don't care about the officiating if it's questionable or not. You got to deal with it, and you got to not play the ref. You got to play the game. And go out there, run it up, Perman. I mean, like in that movie, remember the Titans? Run it up, leave no doubt. Let's go out there and go to work. So anyways, if you like this content, like and subscribe. I see you guys later. On the road to 600 subscribers. Of course, the ultimate goal is 1,000 or more. So you can make more money off this. Of course, liking the video, commenting on the video really helps the channel out a lot, and sharing the video as well. But commenting and liking helps the YouTube algorithm so more people can see it, and potentially subscribe down the line and hit the notification bell as well.